Hello, my darling sugar plums and cherubs. Guess what? Today we're going to talk about public speaking, an amazingly important topic that is especially pertinent right now because you have been working on poetry memorization that you're going to be presenting later this week. So, because every one of you is better than adequate, we're going to learn about public speaking skills for a better than adequate presentation. So I'm excited to teach you about some of these important skills that you can then show me when you recite your poems later this week. So, question one, why should you care? I know a lot of times as soon as I open my mouth, some of you give me that look of, I don't care, why should I care? And so I'm here to tell you why you should care, and I've got 3 good reasons, so watch out. Reason number 1 is that according to a study by sociologist Andrew Zickery, and a sociologist, for your reference, is somebody who studies how human beings interact with each other and with the world, basically. It's a very broad study. It's kind of fascinating. So Andrew Zickery determined through some surveys and qualitative research that college students believe that public speaking was the number 1 most important skill that they needed to have in the business world after graduation. Now, some of you might become super crazy stock market executives and business leaders, but others of you may find that your work is not specifically business related. That doesn't mean that you won't have a business side to what you do, though. And it also doesn't mean you won't have the need to persuade people of things. As a teacher, I find that I have to do a lot of persuading, sometimes just persuading you to listen to me talk. So being able to speak is so important for your professional success. Because think about it, do you want to buy a product from somebody who can't string a sentence together? Probably not. Reason 2 why you should care is that when you speak, almost immediately people form an opinion of you based on what you say. Now, that's not necessarily right that they're doing that, but I think we're all guilty of it to a degree. We tend to listen to people and look at them and watch their movements and then form judgments about them. And since that's the way things happen, and since you want to be perceived in a positive light, you want to be able to speak well. Because I'm sure that even on the first day of school, you guys came in and listened to me do my spiel and talk about who knows what, and you probably already formed an opinion of me based on my vocabulary, how I stood in the front of the room, what movements I may have made or not made. Those are all ways that we perceive other people when we watch them and watch them do those things. So you want to present yourself in a way that exudes confidence and intelligence and awesomeness because you're awesome. And it would be really unfortunate if people didn't realize it. Last of all, according to the Washington Post, a pretty impressively well-known newspaper, our country's number 1 fear as a country is not snakes or fire or electrocution or any other thing you might expect. It's public speaking. We're more scared to jump up in front of a crowd and speak than we are to be in a cage with a snake. That is cray-cray. And so you guys are the people of the future. You're the next generation. You need to be the pioneers, the ones who realize and show others that getting up in front of other people and sharing your ideas is not scary. And in fact, it's something we all need to be able to do. So we need to turn over that mentality that public speaking is this big scary thing. We need to be comfortable with it. And if you can get comfortable with it now when you're only 12 or 13 years old, you're going to be a beast public speaker in, college, in your professional life. Maybe some of you will become teachers and have to speak in front of a bunch of students or a bunch of parents one day. You're going to rock it out because you've already gotten lots of practice now. So there's my 3 reasons you should care. Care. You care, right? You do. Excellent, good. Glad we're on the same page. Isn't it fun that I can talk to you and just assume that you've agreed with me because you can't actually respond? I like it. Okay, so next up, what should you be thinking about when you're going to give a presentation? Now, helpful hint. Every item on the bulleted list I'm about to show you is also on the rubric that I gave you that you should be using to prepare for your poetry recitation. So as you practice your speech, or your poem, I should say, that you're going to come up and share with the class, you should be thinking about all these things. So first of all, there's body language and movement. What are you doing with your body while you're up there talking? Hopefully something you should be doing and not, standing there like a crazy person or fidgeting or whatever else you might be doing. Then, of course, there's eye contact, which is very, very Very important. There's also, of course, posture. Mine is horrible right now because I'm sitting Indian style on the couch and, trying to drink my chocolate pu'er tea. No, wait, chocolate Earl Grey. It's delicious. You should drink some. Anyway, my posture is horrible, but if I were to be giving a speech or reciting a poem, I would be standing in a very different way. Then, of course, there's volume and projection. Are you making the sound audible for the people listening to you? Can people hear what you're saying, more or less? And, of course, then expression and intonation. That's about, using your voice to emphasize certain words, having a sense of understanding of what's happening in the poem and not just reading it like a monotonous, boring recording. Then, last of all, there's tempo. And tempo is just how fast are you talking. So, very important. And it's very easy to get really, really fast unintentionally when you're giving a speech. I know, because that was probably my biggest struggle when I was in public speaking class in graduate school, was I would start rushing. And in fact, I'm pretty sure you guys have all heard me do it in class because I just get really excited. I just want to talk about everything for as long as fast as I can so I can get as much information out as possible. But sometimes that's just really hard because nobody understands what I'm saying. And you also can't breathe. That's a problem. So, tempo. All these things, they're on your rubric and they're right here, okay? So be thinking about them. So let's talk about them in a little more detail. We'll start with body language. So I want to show you a little video clip because your goal as far as body language is to find that happy medium space between looking like a statue and looking like a crazy monkey, like the ones that climb all over your car at the Great Adventure. You want to be somewhere in between those two extremes, where you look comfortable, you look, at ease, but you're also not fidgeting like a crazy person. So somewhere between statue and wild crazy monkey. That's what we're looking for. So let's take a look at this public speaker who didn't do exactly the greatest job of that. Okay, so this is an example of exactly what you don't want to do when you're up in front of a group of people and you're speaking. So take a look real quick.
The crops are growing very well, and I think that we should make a perfect pesticide for the crops and keeps the crops preserved too, because we need the food because it's food and stuff. And we can make things, cars, the machine can make it for us. Growing food is so...
Okay, so not only do I have no idea what she was talking about, but also you can't even concentrate if you were trying to because of all the fidgeting she's doing. She's playing with her shirt, she's messing with her hair, she's scratching her nose, she's doing this, shrug thing, which just really makes you wonder if she knows what she's talking about. So you want to avoid all those little motions because it seems like as soon as we get in front of a crowd of people, we want to start playing with our hair, messing with stuff because it's just something to do. But when you do that, it takes away from the attention that we should be paying on what you're saying. So be very careful and aim to look comfortable, and you can move. I'm not saying you have to stay totally still, but you don't want to be messing around with stuff and just playing with things just for the heck of it because people get distracted. Next up is eye contact. Now, the king of eye contact, I think, is Bill Clinton, who used to be the president for a little while of the United States. And I actually got to see him speak when I was in college. And I got to tell you, he's one of the most charismatic people. And charismatic means, he's just kind of draws people to him in the way he speaks. And what he does is he basically makes every person, even in a crowd, feel like they're the only person in the room. I'm sure you probably know somebody in your life who does that. It's a really great gift to be able to do that. And one of the ways that you do it is by really giving someone eye contact. And not creepy stalker eye contact where you stare people in the eye like a crazy person, but that kind of eye contact where you're kind of, without saying it, saying, I understand. I see what you're saying. I get where you're coming from. So Bill Clinton does that, and one of the times he does it is during the presidential debates. So I'm going to show you a little clip of that real quick.
That's why I'm trying to show people who lost their jobs, lost their homes. Well, I've been governor of a small state for 12 years. I'll tell you how it's affected me. Every year, Congress and the president sign laws that make us do more things, and gives us less money to do it with. I see people in my state, middle-class people, their taxes have gone up in Washington and their services have gone down, while the wealthy have gotten tax cuts. I I have seen what's happened in this last 4 years when, in my state, when people lose their jobs, there's a good chance I'll know them by their names. When a factory closes, I know the people who ran it. When the businesses go bankrupt, I know them. And I've been out here for 13 months, meeting in meetings just like this, ever since October, with people like you all over America. People that have lost their jobs, lost their livelihood, lost their...
So I'll stop there, but as you can see, there's a crowd of people that Bill Clinton is addressing in this speech, and yet, this woman, he's making her feel like she's the only person in the room, and that's a gift, and you want to do that whenever you're speaking to a group of people. You want to make each person feel like they're the only person in the room. The other issue with eye contact is that if you're looking down at the ground while you're speaking, then people have a bit of a harder time hearing you because you're kind of muffling your voice when you look down and talk like this. But if you look out, your voice can go out. That's really important. So let's move on here for a second. So next up, of also great importance, is posture. Now, posture is basically the way that you're holding yourself. And as I told you earlier, my posture right now is pretty awful. But if I were to be giving a speech, I would want to make sure that my shoulders were back, that my chest is up, and that I'm looking forward, and that I look confident and comfortable. Now, if you're somebody who tends to puff your chest out, the problem with that is that you sort of look like you're overemphasizing something or just trying too hard to get people's attention, and that comes across to people. The other issue is if somebody sways when they're talking, and the problem with that is that, as you can see here, it makes people really uncomfortable when you're swaying, and might even make them feel seasick, so you don't want to be swaying as you recite your poem. And that's going to be tempting because there's rhythm, and when you hear rhythm, sometimes you're like, oh, out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole, but you don't want to do that because people are going to feel ill. Last of all, and I think this is probably the most dangerous trap that we fall into, is to get kind of slumped over or to go almost inside yourself because you're nervous or because you just feel like you need to kind of go inside and get quiet and not put those shoulders back and be assertive. But that just makes you look unconfident or insecure. And in the end, you might not be that confident. You might be scared out of your wits to be up in front of your classmates reciting a poem. But your classmates don't need to know that. So just take a deep breath, put your shoulders back, stand up nice and straight, and remember that you are somebody. Maybe even say to yourself in your head before you start, I am somebody. And take a nice deep breath while you say it. Because posture makes a massive difference in how people view you and how you appear to view yourself. Next up is volume. We've got some extremes we want to avoid. So we don't want to have this situation.
I'm sorry, what was that? Hello, my name is Elena Grama. I was born with kids like fish.
Okay, so clearly you can barely hear what she's saying, but we also don't want to have this situation. This is an actual nomination speech for a presidential candidate who didn't run for president in the end, but just listen to the way he speaks.
I told tonight, I have been a Republican in times good, and I have been a Republican in times bad. Albert Einstein issued one of my most favorite quotes in the history of the spoken word, and it is as follows. In the middle of opportunity.
Okay, clearly he's nuts. And you don't want to speak like that because if you say everything really loudly, then nothing ever gets any special treatment and you don't know what's important and what's not. So you don't want to talk so quietly that no one can hear you. But you also don't want to be just super loud for no good reason. You, in fact, instead of just picking one volume and staying on that volume and being crazy at it, you want to find a nice conversational level, and you want to have some expression and some intonation. And now what that means is that not every word is going to get the same amount of emphasis from you. So some words might get a little bit more of an oomph from you because they're more important. For example, if you say, gather ye rosebuds while ye may, gather and rosebuds get a little more emphasis than ye. You want to make sure that you're giving the right emphasis to the right words. Do all these things and you will be a massive, massive success. I've got some resources for you if you need more information.